Hi, everyone.
Aye.
Which, oh, you didn't.
I said, you make the decision for him.
Oh,
What page, Bernie?
I have 72, I think.
No, 90,
Also, I was.
96, 97. We finished women, right?
Yes.
Women in Zimun. Yeah, we talked about the Mishnah Berurah. So we're on 97. Susie, could you pass me whatever that is?
Yeah.
No, here, I'm recording for him.
Counting a child to form a Zimun. That's where we, thank you, Saul. May children under the age of bar mitzvah count towards a zimun. The Gemara in Brachos raises the possibility that in some cases, one child may join two men to form a zimun. Amrav Yechad. Katan poirech mezanin Allah. Katan poirech means a child who's still under the age of age, but he's showing signs of puberty. Tanya Ma'achi Katan Shevi Shtei Cyrus. You have a child under the age of 13, but already has two hairs. Mizanin Allah. V'shelo Hevi Shtei Cyrus. If the Katan doesn't have two hairs, only Mizanin Allah. Ve'ein medagdikin b'Katan. Means you're not careful. So the Gemara doesn't understand Hagufa Kasha. It's internally contradictory. Arber Hevi Shtei Cyrus in. Lo Hevi Lo. You said it depends on signs of maturity. That if he has them, yes. He doesn't have them, no. V'adar Tani ein medagdikin b'Katan. But then you said, we're not careful. Meaning you don't have to check. Lasui Mai, what is that coming to teach us? Lav Lasui Katan Poireach. Isn't it already coming to include a Katan who's showing signs? However, Les Hilchas Kecholani Shmaitza, the halacha follows none of this. If you have a Katan who you know you're benching, he knows we're benching to Hashem, you can count him in the zin. Abai v'Rabba Yasvi Kamei de Rabba. Abai and Rava were learning in front of Rabba. Armelu Rabba. Lemi Mavarchin. Who do we bench to? Abai and Rava were then children. Amr la l'Rachmana to Hashem. V'Rachmana hechi Yosef. Where's Hashem? Rava achvi l'shmei tlala. Rava pointed to the ceiling. Abai nafik librach reklapi shmaya. Abai went outside and showed the sky. Amrlu Rabba tarvaichu Rabbanan Avisi. Both of you will become rabbis. Hanu damri inchi butzin makatfe yadiya. That means you can already tell a good cucumber even before it's ripe, like when it has blossoms. Same thing, you can see a cotton even when he's young, what he's destined to become. According to Rav and Rav Nachman, a child who understands that the Birchas Hamazon is recited as thanks to Hashem may join the Zimun. The Gemara seems to conclude this way. And the Rif rules in accordance with this opinion and suggests that a child of age 9 or 10 is enough to qualify. Am Rav Nachman, Katan Shiodei L'mim Avarch Mizan Alav. V'chein Ilchasa. The Rif comes out and says that's halacha. Some people say it's only when he's after 12 years old, in his 13th year. And even if he doesn't have signs of maturity. But a cotton under the age of 12, even though he has puberty signs, ein mizan cotton. Afilu ben Esr ben Tesha k'shiyodel mimavarch mizan Allah. V'achi chazina lagon. The Gemara seemed to suggest that even one who's 10 or 9 years old, if he knew who to recite the bracha to, you could form a zimun. And the Rif says he saw the Gaon do that. So the Rosh writes, though, that a child may never count for a zimun unless he has passed a critical stage of physical maturation. Hilkach, Hamachvar Shebekulam, the clearest opinion, Ein Oisin Cotton Snif Lasra Lebirchas Hamazon Fil Ulashloshla. You don't add a cotton to 10 for Birchas Hamazon, or for a minion, or for a zimun of 3, Ad Shiyavi Stay Cyrus, until he has 2 heirs. The Rosh bases his opinion upon an incident recorded in the Yerushalmi that indicates a child must have passed the initial stage of maturity in order to be included in a zimun. The Beis Yosef explains that the Rosh presumably does not disagree with the conclusion of the Bavli, that the halacha follows Rav Nachman to allow a child, but rather he interprets Rav Nachman to mean that if a child understands the basic concept of Birchas Hamazon, the child may count for a zimun after passing the initial stage of maturity. This might sometimes occur even before reaching the age of bar mitzvah. The Shulchan Aruch rules in accordance with the Rif, which is more makel, to allow even a young child. The Ramah accepts the opinion of the Rosh. However, the Ramah adds that an individual is presumed to have already reached maturity immediately following bar mitzvah. So there's a chazaka that after 13, he's reached puberty. Cotton she'igia la'oinasa pa'utos. The Gemara explains pa'utos refers to very sharp children who understand what it means to buy something that ranges between 6 and 10, or 9 and 10 according to Rif. So cotton she'igia la'oinasa pa'utos v'yodei l'mimavarchit. And if you ask him, who do we bench to, and he knows, mezanin alav. Umitztarf bein l'shlosha bein l'asara. And you can include him into the zimun for both 3 and 10. The Ramah says, some say you can't include him until 13. There's a chazaka that he has 2 heirs. That's the minig, and we shouldn't deviate from this minig. Cheresh v'shoite, a deaf mute. If they understand what's going on, you can be mitzdarf them. Even though the person who's deaf doesn't hear the bracha. The Mishmur explains that once a boy reaches the age of 13, we don't have to take him into the bathroom and check him. You rely on the chazaka that he's already seen signs of maturity to allow him to join the zimun. The Mishnah Berurah also comments that although this presumption does not allow the boy to recite the Birchas Hamazon for someone else, so if in order to be motzi somebody else, you have to be machayiv in the first place. So even though a kid is 13, if he doesn't have 2 Cyrus, doesn't have 2 heirs, he can't be motzi you. So this chazaka, you can rely on him to join the zimun, but not to recite Birchas Hamazon from someone else who needs it. He may lead the zimun, since each participant typically recites Birchas Hamazon independently. We're not relying on the person who leads the zimun to being motzi all of us in the benching. Each one of us, even though you're a part of the zimun, you recite the benching by yourself. Right? Says the Mishnah Berurah, once he's 13, once he reached the age of physical maturity, we assume he's got physical maturity. This is just to include him in the 3 or 10 for benching. But for him to lead we have to know for sure even though he's of the age that he has 2 hairs. Shebirchas hamazon min haTorah, uv'shel Torah in soichel al chazaka zu. You can't rely on this chazaka for Torah law. The mistama avi would be the same thing, for example, for him to be the Bal Koirei for Parsha Zachor, which, according to most opinions, is Midoraisa, and he's being motzi other people. So even if he's 13 years old, you'd have to take him into the bathroom and check him to have 2 hairs. Otherwise, he would not be able to be motzi Samim min haTorah. So that's another example. The other example that comes to mind is Yibum, even though we don't do Yibum today. But it would be the same thing with Chlitza. A cotton cannot do Yibum or Chlitza. So if he was 13 years old, we'd have to be sure that he has Shtei Cyrus. You can't rely on Chazaka if it's a Doraisa Dikadin. But if the leader of the Zimun is only doing Rabbi Sayin Varech, but everybody at the table is going to recite their own benching, less Lanba, then there's not a problem with he leading the Zimun. The Kivan Shuben Yud Gimel Shana Samchim is Al Chazaka. The Yalkut Yosef rules in accordance with Shulchan Aruch that one child above age 6 may be included in the Zimun if he knows that the benching is being directed to Hashem. Kadmi ben sheish v'malash yodei l'mi mavarchim v'yodei l'varch mitzaref l'zimun. So for the Sfardim, they can rely on one child. Ben l'shloisha ben l'asar kol makom and l'tzaref l'zimun elakot nechot, but not more than one. Lo yoser. Ben l'zimun b'shloisha ben l'zimun l'asar. The cotton be yoser shlimdu l'mi mavarchim. But if he's younger than 6, and they taught him, ein litzaref l'zimun, kiven shu cotton be yoser, he's very young. Afilu min charif b'sichlov, he's very smart. U'minag Ashkenaz m'shem mitzaref and cotton l'zimun, elat shenas l'bar mitzvah. He says, minag Ashkenaz is to wait until the bar mitzvah. The Sefer Vizos HaBracha summarizes practical opinions concerning children and zimun. Cotton. B'nei Ashkenaz eina mitzarfin cotton l'zimun. Got to be 13. Ach b'nei Sfarad mitzarfin cotton l'zimun b'shloisha megil sheish shanim l'mala. They allow a child of 6 as long as he knows who they're benching to. Umegil teisha shanim l'mala mitzarf l'zamin basara. If he's 9, he can be mitzarf to the group of 10. B'Shema or Tzion. Achagon Rav Mordechai Eliyahu Minago Kidas Moran Shem Yodei L'mi Mavarchim Mitzarf Hein L'Shosha Ben L'Asara. He holds like Rav Avadia that if a child is 6 who knows who you're benching to, you can be mitzarf him to the Zimun of 3 and the Zimun of 10. B'chol Yel v'Yel L'fi Chochmasa. Aval L'zayin Brachos. For Sheva Brachos, the Chos V'Kala ain't a mitzaref. Just because he can be mitzaref to Zimun does not allow us to be mitzaref him to Sheva Brachos. Any comments or questions?
When what I don't understand is you're saying if we're not sure when he's 13 that he could lead us, but everyone still has to do their benching. Does that imply like someone who's of age can do the benching for someone else?
If someone can be motzi somebody's benching.
For the entire benching?
Yeah, there's a Tosfos that says a me'era, like a klala should occur. The Tosfos talks in Brachas, talks about a husband whose wife had to be motzi him. It was a terrible thing because he's an amoritz. But technically, Sai, a person could be motzi somebody else in everything.
But that's what it's referring to?
Yeah. It's referring to the guy being able to be motzi a person. Remember, so to be motzi, he has to be mechuyev in it.
Not everything, Ernie.
No,
Can't be
anything
can't
that
be
you're,
motzi. Someone else to put on tefillin, you can't be motzi.
no, something begufo, you can't begufo. I can't shake the lulav for you. Any mitzvah, but like, for example, kiddush, benching, a bracha. Now, if I cannot be motzi, if I can't make a birchas nenin for somebody unless I haven't eaten it. Like I can say a shackle if I have, but otherwise he has to say his own because there's no arvus by that. But other things, for example, kiddush, even though I've been yotze kiddush, midin arvus, I can make kiddush for another person.
But it's common to have someone be yotze with someone else's kiddush, but is it common for someone to be yotze with someone else's benching?
No, the Mishnah Berurah said it itself. It's our minig. Each person says it. Said that says
Right.
it. The
Okay.
minig is that everyone's. But let's say somebody doesn't know
I understand.
how to read Hebrew, so
Right.
he could listen to somebody, and the guy could be motzi him.
Ernie,
Or maybe they're sick.
Ernie, let me ask you, in Botkim Leshtei Sarot over here, let's say that he was going to be Moitzi the Carl in benching, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
does anybody paskin that you have to be, if the guy's 13 years old and one day, and then you're going to let him bench for the oilam and he's going to be Moitzi, then they're going to be boidekim?
We just learned the halacha tonight.
I understand, but we paskin like that.
Yes. Yes, but in general, when someone is
You don't,
mizam,
you don't.
he's not being
rely-
motzi the benching for everybody. Everyone's doing their own benching.
No,
So that's why the Mishnah
I
Berurah
hear
said
what
it's not
you're
a
saying.
problem.
What about Kiddush?
Kiddush, he would not be able to do unless you Kiddush is midoraisa. It follows the same principle that he just said about benching.
I would also say in response to Sai that the reason it's common to do Kiddush is because of the principle of Arevus. We're allowed to do it, and that's why it's common. You can make Kiddush 3 or 4 times, for different people, for your wife, etc., because of the principle of Arevus.
There's a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Chav Tes Amud Aleph. There's a Rashi below there, which is the principle that Yaakov was talking about of Arevus, has to do with mitzvahs. So, for example, but a Birchas Nenin doesn't work. But because Kiddush on Shabbos is a mitzvah, min Torah in itself, so because Kol Yisrael Rim Zelazeh, then it works.
That would only be Kiddush at night. It wouldn't be Kiddush during the day.
Well, Kiddush in the day is Kiddush Derabo is rabbinic. It's not Kiddush Deraisa.
Right. So Kiddush during the day.
Yes, but then you wouldn't have to check his 2 hairs.
You
Exactly.
wouldn't have to check.
Exactly.
Right. He can drink the whiskey or the wine. Okay.
I think it's much more relevant by Parsha Zohar and by Yibum and Chlitza. There it actually becomes, there are cases of Besdin. There's brother, right? There's a brother who has to give Chlitza to a woman. Let's say there were 2 brothers. One was 25, the other brother is 13. And the brother died without children. And so the widow cannot remarry unless the 13-year-old gives Chlitza. They got to make sure that he's a bar chiyuva at 13. Not just we're using the chazaka. Certainly Yibum. And Chlitza as well. And Parsha Zohar. I don't think that's ever I was a Balkoyer when I was 13. By Rabbi Uri. Nobody ever checked me.
I remember, I was there.
Huh? Oh yeah, Harold can be a witness.
I was there.
Yeah, Harold's father was the Gabbai. Harold's father of Hashan, he stood next to me every shot. Okay. Okay. Where did we go? Okay, 101. Counting individuals who did not eat bread for Zimun. Well, this comes up all the time. You're at a Shalashudis, only a few people have washed, other people have eaten other things. So this is the halacha here about who can participate in the zimun. We have seen so far that the obligation of zimun is created when 3 or more individuals eat bread. What is the halacha of only 2 of the 3 ate bread, and the third ate other foods? Or what is the halacha if 9 ate bread and the 10th did not? Can they recite these regular formulas? The Gemara Masech the Bracha states that in the latter case, the case of 9, you can still mention Hashem's name. Tisha achlu dagan. 9 people ate grain. Vechad achal yerek. The 10th only ate vegetables. Amrav Zera mitztarfin. He says that can create the zimun. Amrav Zera boy me name Rav Yudim. What about Shmone Mao? What if there's only 8? Shiva Mao. Amr le lo shna. So he said if it's 8 or 7, it makes no difference. It means even 3 people not eating bread would work. Shisha vaday lamaboy. But 6 would be insufficient. Armle Rav Yirmiyah, Shapir Abdith Loy Balacha. It was good that you didn't have any problem with 6. Sometimes Mishum de Ikaruba. By 7 or 8, there is significant majority who ate grain. But Hachanami Ikarav. But with 6, there's also a majority. So why should be a difference? But Ius of a Ruba de Minker be'enet. So there's a new concept here. Ruba de Minker. It's not just a majority, it's a noticeable majority. 6 is not a noticeable majority. 7 is. We just learned in tzitzis, when you have a beged, we know that tzitzis that are complete 4 corners, but they make these tzitzis that are gufiyot, right? That it's a little connected, like you wear it like a shirt. But the problem is, it's got to be rov haminker. You got to be able to that more than 60%. Same thing has to be open and not connected. Okay, that's just this concept of rov haminker. According to Gemara, even if only 7 ate bread, you can have a zimun if 3 others are present. But if there's only 6, there was a machlokas between Rav Yirmi and Rav Zera. According to Rav Yirmi, it was okay. All you need is rov. According to Rav Zera, it was insufficient because you need a readily apparent majority, which is 7. Now, the Shulchan Aruch rules, like Rav Zera, that 7 is okay. Tisha shachlu dagan vechad achal kazayis yerek. 9 ate bread, and 1 ate a kazayis vegetable. Mitzdarf laskar Hashem. They can say Nevarach Elokeinu. Vafilu lo tibeli moim ela b'tzir. He dipped his vegetable into brine. Olo shosi men ela kos echad. Sheyesh bo revius mikol mashke. Or he drank a revius of any liquid as long as it's not water. Chutz min hamayim. Mitzdarf moim. He can be mitzdarf. Ushiyah mavarich echad nochle apas. But the one who benched has to be the one who ate bread.
So I'm confused because the first paragraph says he doesn't combine if he doesn't have a kazayas of bread. The second paragraph says if you can convince him to have something to drink or other food.
We started off 9 who ate bread, and the one guy ate a kazayas of vegetable. Even if he wasn't dipping his vegetable into the brine.
But when it says Aval Legimel Eina Mitztar, is that referring to the 3 of the 10?
We're talking about 9 of the 10.
Oh.
There's 9 of 10, and then the one guy ate vegetable. No,
I'm talking about the Shulchan Aruch, the second line.
Tisha sha'achlu dagon, the echad achol kazayis yeret, mitztarfin lahaskir Hashem, the afilu loy tibel imon el bitzir, and even if he dipped his food in brine, or let's say he drank liquid, sheyesh bo revius b'kol mashpe, as long as it's anything other than water, orange juice, or anything else, mitzdarfim. So he's saying you don't just have to eat vegetable. Let's say you drank revius of a liquid. The 10th guy, you have 9 who ate bread. The 10th guy, he has to eat or drink something. But then we're told that the guy who benches himself has to be one of them who ate bread. Then comes the final kicker of the Shulchan Aruch, afilu shiva achlu dagon, v'gimel yerek, and 3 ate vegetable, mitztarfin. Aval shisha lo deruba deminka be'inan. 6 will not work.
Is this only to say Elokeinu?
Yes.
So in other words, you could have a zimun without Elokeinu.
Of
If you have 6 and
you could have just, if let's say you only had 9 people, not period, then you only can have a zimun of 3.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it doesn't exclude the zimun of 3, but he's saying that you don't need 10 to say the Elokeinu. 9, and then later he said 7. The Shulchan Aruch addresses the parallel question in the case of a simple zimun of 3. Here there's a machlokes as to whether they may join to form a zimun if the third has not eaten bread. But this issue of if there isn't 10 people who ate bread, that's for 10. It means the third guy has to eat a kazayis bread as well. Yesh oimrim de kazayis doged ma'ani afilu eino pas. If he ate grain, a kazayis, even if it's not bread, it'll work. Some say he needs a kazayis of bread. Second opinion, kazayis of other grains. That's not bread. V'yeshamin to be yerek of a Michael mani, or any food or vegetable. Hilkach, shnaim sha'achlu ubash lishi, 2 people ate, third comes along. If they can convince him to eat a kazayis of bread, great. Then they shouldn't give him anything to drink or any other food. But if it happened that they gave him something to drink or food, even if he doesn't want to eat bread. According to Shulchan Aruch, it emerges that ideally, Meikar Adin, the third person should eat bread. But if he does not want to, you shouldn't give him something else to eat, because we're going to have a suffix. Nevertheless, if he does eat something, he can form the zimun. And the Mishnah Berurah writes that
is there any obligation for that third person?
No, there's no obligation. If he doesn't want to eat, he can't be forced to do so. Now, if he sat down with the 2 of them, and now there's 3 of them, and they were all eating, now they have a chiyuv of zimun.
Right.
But that's not what the case was. This was 2 people were eating, and a guy walks by, and they try to convince there's no chiyuv that he has to eat.
Many times you might sit at a table and it happens. Did you guys want to make a mezumin? Oh, we only have 2. Did anyone else eat? Is someone obligated? So no one's obligated to say, "Oh, okay, I'll eat something."
But
in other words, to help them
they're not obligated. But if they've eaten something other than bread, then you can be mitzvah them.
Right.
In fact, the Mishnah Berurah says we're makel. Achshav noagim shim lo rotze lechol pas. Here today, noistim lo lechatchila lishtos or lechol ezedavar. You can even give him something to eat or drink. Ukadei achrona, like the third shita.
But the argument, if someone were to make the argument, you could help us do a mitzvah. Is that fair?
Yeah, the Mishnah Berurah says you can offer it to him. He doesn't have to accept. There's no aveira if he doesn't accept. By the way, grain-based food that qualifies as pasababikisnin qualifies as bread for zeman according to all opinions. Remember, we spent weeks on this subject of pasababikisnin, crackers and cookies and all these other things that, we determined were bread-like. That's great for this. If he ate something like that, slam dunk that you can do zeman with him. Doesn't have to be pas, but pasababikisnin certainly would count.
I would say, although he doesn't do an aver if he doesn't join, he's not a tzaddik either. He's helping someone else do a mitzvah.
Well, but that's more of a negative than a positive, Yaakov.
I mean, he doesn't have
That's what I'm
to, but
saying.
if it's for to facilitate someone doing a mitzvah,
So therefore, you're inferring
course,
that maybe
of
he
course.
should do it.
yeah,
Well,
I think
he
so.
doesn't have a chiyuv.
Right. He has no. I mean, we have many categories. I found I have 12 that I found where there's no halachic obligation, but ein chachamim nocheba, chachamim are happy with them, so he has no halachic obligation. But he doesn't get extra mitzvah stamps for it either.
Absolutely. Okay.
I mean, it seems that the problem is that Shalashudas, where everybody's full from on a shorter Shabbos from eating lunch or late lunch, and they come, most people do not eat. So you do not have 7 people who have washed and are eating pas. Yet we are benching. We're benching with a kos.
Well, if we don't have 7 people who ate bread and 3 people who've eaten something else, we should not be benching with Elokeinu.
Most times there are 7 people there, Bernie. I don't know if you took the census, but most of
I
the
would
people
say most times we have it too.
most people, Chaim can tell you, most times most people make a brocha and then just don't eat too much. That's all. But you chayiv on shalosh sudot anyway. So to say that some full, because that's not a
We average 6 people.
Chaim. Chaim, I'm trying to dan you lakavschus because you give out.
We average 6 people, so most of the time we have 6, and Rabbi Norton is said that the 6 people is the minimum.
But you just learned. We just
just
saw that
learned.
6 is not 6 is not enough.
I'm not sure if that's how I'm not sure if that's how we possibly. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, we'll see. But I know Rabbi Einhorn has always said you have to have at least 6.
Follows Rav Yirmiyah.
Maybe he was talking about a minion. I don't know.
But the Shulchan Aruch paskins like Rav Zera.
I'm sure there's somebody who paskins like Rav Yirmiyah, and that's who we followed.
Shulchan Aruch says that Aval Shisha Lo, the Ruba de Minker Binan. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Okay.
I don't know how you get Ruba would be 6.
Ruba de Minker. We went through this. You need a recognizable majority, which is 7.
Yeah, but if people are eating cake there and all other kinds of things, so
I understand, but you need 7 with pas, and the 3 get to eat whatever they want. Okay, so we'll maybe there's a lenient sheet that the Tzurba doesn't bring. That's pretty unusual. the Tzurba usually brings, if the Pnine Allah, if there's some makel, they'll usually bring it. But this seems to be maker adin. And I would agree with Saul. I think most of the times we do have 7 people. Chaim, you've heard Beferish him say that 6 is enough?
So I remember.
Yeah, but maybe not. I'm sure he probably not.
Well, we can ask him.
Yeah. Okay.
Ask the source.
Okay.
Maybe the guy needs to stand by the washing station.
Well, those of us here will be more motivated to wash and eat bread, right? To be Makayim as much as possible the din appropriate.
Take a look around the table, see if its colors are broken.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that there isn't 7 people eating bread. Okay, 103. Leaving the meal before Zimun. One of the most common questions arises is whether a person may recite Birkas Hamazon alone. How many times are we at a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a dinner and we want to leave early and you want to just bench and leave? But you've already sat down with your table, with your people, and whoever you're soed with, whether it's the whole room. So there's already been established a chiyuv to do zimun. So can you just leave? Can you recite Birkas Hamazon alone and leave a meal before zimun has been recited? For example, a person attending a wedding and the zimun Birkas Hamazon and Sheva Brachos will not take place until late at night. Is one permitted to recite Birkas Hamazon independently, thereby evading his obligation to participate in the zimun? Even if it is argued that one should not recite it alone, may a person instead participate in a zimun of fewer than 10 participants, perhaps even a zimun with 10 or more participants, but without the recitation of the Sheva Brachos, so much more complicated. Can you make a zimun of 3 on your table and bench quickly, or even of 10? The Beis Yosef addresses this question and quotes the Rashba, who writes that at first glance, it is forbidden for one who is already obligated in the mitzvah of zimun, since he began the meal with the other participants, to leave early. However, the Beis Yosef indicates that according to Rav Hai Gaon, it is permissible when there's a pressing need. Hilkach, im lo rotzu lahafsik, in the case of a meal of 3 people, if one of the 3 wishes to leave before the others have finished their meal, he may ask them to join him in a zimun when he wishes to leave. If they consent, he leads the zimun with them. He recites the entire Birkas Hamazon for himself. They respond, and then wait to recite Birkas Hamazon themselves until they are finished eating. That's an important halacha. That if there's 3 of you, one has to run out. The 2 people can stop eating. The person who has to run out does the mezumin, Rabbi Sainav Arech. They respond, and then he finishes his benching. They go back to their meal. And when they finish their meal, they just bench because they already did the zimun. Now, let's say they didn't want to do that. So if the 2 other people who were eating didn't want to stop, he can't. They're doing him a favor by them temporarily stopping their meal and answering to his zimun. Because if they don't want to stop, he's not allowed to leave. Until the other 2 people finish their meal, and then they'd all do the zimun. Once they sat down together and began eating, there's a chiyuv zimun. Below zimun. And you can't bench without doing the zimun. One of them has to leave. That the 2 other diners don't have to stop their meal and do zimun with them. That's the minute that most of us are familiar with, not the first minute. Honestly, has anyone ever done the first minute? Most of us rely on this Rav Hai Gaon. We bench, we leave. We don't make people stop and be mezamin with us.
I've experienced it though.
Okay.
People do ask. Can you answer?
Yeah. Okay, but then the din is, like we said, then you finish eating, and then later on you just bench yourself, and you've already participated in the zimun. But the Rav Gon says the two people don't have to stop, and the guy himself can bench. However, utzricha iyuna, he leaves it as a tzorach iyun. He's not that happy. The Beis Yosef is not that happy with that. So he says, "Ulaniyas daiti, my humble opinion. Nira shagon lo ayri ela kishadavar nochutz lo lotzes. It's got to be like an emergency. The guy has to run out. The efshalo lisake, he cannot wait. Aval hecha de efshalo lisake. If the guy can wait, gam l'divrei agon ein rishai levarach v'lotzes l'shuk ad shigmu hashnaim v'zamen eiman. They should wait. And the Mishnah writes the same thing. That in case of need, one may leave the meal early and skip the zimun and skip the sheva brachos. L'fimadim avur l'kaman, the b'makam sheyesh ones o hifsid mama. If there's an emergency, an accident, or loss of money, mutter le'echad v'ligmar sudaso mikodem. A person could end his meal early, bench. Mikodem shegamru hashnam levarach l'fnei atzma, he can bench himself. Ma'iri hacha gam ken b'chai gavne shayu ela shlosha muchrochim l'mayr v'ligmar sudason mikodem. The Mishnah Berurah is commenting on the case discussed by Shulchan Aruch, in which three individuals who were part of three separate groups must join together to form a new zimun. One of the Mishnah Berurah's explanation for the fact that the three do not need to join the zimun of their original respective groups is that these three needed to conclude before the others in their respective groups, so they join together with each other and they must form a zimun together. So if the three, Elo Ashlosh B'Chorach L'Mar V'Ligmar Sudas Mikodem Lachein in Izdanu Elo Ashlosh B'Yachad Yizanu, so they bench themselves. They don't have to join another three. Sometimes one does not wish to remain until the end of a meal, or it will be hard for him to do so, but it's not truly a case of a financial loss or an emergency. What should one do? Must he remain against his will? So Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Igros Moshe offers the suggestion that one explicitly declare that he does not mean to formally join the meal with the others. In this manner, he's not obligated to zimun. Lanias daiti yesh eitza kala deila rotzim sholo chakos at marz. Let's say you know you're going to be leaving early, and he doesn't want to wait until the end of the Suda V'Zayin Brachos. Yoim Rebbe he should say aloud before they sit down to eat, I'm not sort of joining the group. Even though they're sitting on one table, lo mischayev b'zimun. Al kol ponim barama, v'mogen ovrim savri kain. V'yesh yismoch al zeh l'maisa, ani es daiti, kshesh l'tzorach le'echot, let's say, machmash v'arim tuva, v'tzorach l'ashkim. He has to wake up early the next morning. He's got to go home early. He's allowed to do it by excluding himself from the Suda. The Yalkut Yosef offers the same suggestion, but Rav Yosef recommends beginning the meal slightly after the others at the table as well, so that one's intent to avoid officially joining the meal is more evident. Mashiesh noagim b'yeshivas hakdoshos, shemkodem echad ma'mesubim v'sayim achilos l'kodem acherim. In the yeshivas, one guy wanted to finish his meal quickly when Marley don't go back to his learning. And Eino Mamtin Lazimun, he doesn't wait for the Zimun. El Mavarch Berachas Amos La'atzma, the Holech. The Yesrib Ne'ab Chabura, Shem L'Malam Asra, the other people that are more than 10, Mizamin Acharkach, Noagim Kain, Yesh Lem Al Manashi Yismoch, they have to rely on, Ulvachi Chavda Befesh B'Shash Shabbat Lechol Imoin. He has to have kavana when he joined the meal. He should announce, I'm not participating in the group here. He should sort of start his meal a few seconds later. When he says, if the people are not going to spend too much time, he should wait and be misamin with them.
It doesn't say he has to announce it. The Yaakov Yosef only says he has to intend it. The Moshe says announce it. Yaakov Yosef just says it. Attend
But he
it.
says Yichavnu b'feirush. He says it
Explicitly intend. I don't know what that means. Okay, you might be right.
The feirush, I think, means he has to enunciate it. Otherwise, he would have just said V'vachi skave.
Right.
What do you mean Yiskavnu b'feirush?
Strange language, but okay. I think you're right.
It may be that he has to say it. But it's a shaila. It's a good question.
But we can always do what the first opinion is, and that is just to bench yourself, and you bench with the three. You are the one who recites the zimun, and that's it.
If they're willing to stop eating and do it. I'm just saying.
They have to stop eating.
Yeah, they have to stop eating not during his benching, just during the zimun. You have to answer. They can't be eating while they're answering.
Okay, I mean that's 5
that's
seconds.
Trivial. It's trivial, but you know how people are. That's why they said, if let's say the two people don't want to stop, so they said he could do it by himself if there was a Tzorech Gadol or a Hefsid Mammon or something like that. And Rav Moshe is coming up with a way of doing it. You don't have to do the zimun. You just bench early. If you tell everyone that I'm not going to be participating in the zimun from the outset. You know if you're leaving a place early, usually. You don't agree?
I've seen many people ask and people always answer. Very nice.
Okay.
This sort of circles back a little bit to a previous topic where we were saying some people wash at the shmorg, right? So technically, when you wash at the shmorg, and if you didn't bench to go in to have your the meal, right, you were carrying it over going into another room, then technically, did you sit down together as three or more? Because you washed independently.
Well, when you sit down at the table,
you had already washed at the shmorg.
I understand, and we came out that you didn't have to, as long as you had in mind.
Right. So, my point is, you didn't but you didn't eat together or start your meal together.
No, you didn't start. Absolutely, you didn't start. But it fulfills this business of he actually likes it that you're starting at a different time if you want to leave early.
So that's what I'm saying. So that can you may not have to announce it if you do that.
Maybe. I think that's a we're combining these cases that certainly might be. We have to give that some thought. So the
people at the table.
What was that?
People at the table don't know. People at the table don't know when you wash. They don't know that you wash for the shmor. If you're sitting down with them, they think you're eating with them. Especially if you follow that, it really have to announce it. So they don't know.
But what's interesting
but they
about
do know there was a shmor, Yaakov, and that the possibility existed.
I think what's more complicated by a wedding or a simcha is your table. I'm not sure what kaviyas that creates, because there's usually going to be one benching by the chosin or whatever, right? We're not going to bench our table. We're a zimun with 150 people, and especially if we're going to have sheva brachas, we're all going to bench together.
Yeah, but it is common for as you know for people to leave early, and so it does happen.
Okay, in economy, so usually there's not 10 people on your table. There's not usually 10 men, right? There's usually 5 couples. So maybe at most you could have a private zimun of 3.
If you have separate seating or not. You have separate seating, there always are 10.
No, that's true. If you have separate seating, you would have 10 men. Okay, so does anybody remember being at a function where we did Nevarech Elokeinu with the table that everyone left and we benched with a Nevarech Elokeinu?
No one stays. I can't remember people staying for the official Sheva Brachas. It hasn't happened in years, as far as
Okay,
I
so
know.
Harold, let me ask
Unless
you a
it's your
question.
family.
So Harold, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When we're at a separate seating wedding and there's 10 men on the table, do you recall benching and saying Nevarch Elokeinu with the 10 men on your table?
No,
I don't recall that at all.
no.
But technically, I guess if the people sitting down, they all know that they're leaving before the Sheva Brachos,
Yeah.
that certainly could be done based on what we're learning.
Problem is, you're right, but the problem is they don't leave at the same time. So if everyone left at the same time, you possibly would have 10 men saying Elokeinu, but usually, 3 or 4 people wander out, and then you realize you've got 4 or 5 people left at the table, and you're about to leave, and you say, "Let's bench."
Let's bench.
So
And
you
If,
don't have
if
10.
there are 10 men there and they bench together, are you obligated then to say the Sheva Brachas?
I think we asked that we're going to get to that.
Oh,
I think we're going to get to that here. I don't think the Sheva Brachas by a private table would be recited because the Chassan Kala are not there. Chassan Kala, there's going to be an official Sheva Brachas. They even asked that question, right?
Yeah, it's the very beginning.
ah,
We haven't gotten to it yet, but it's the very first question, the first questions.
Right. It sounds from both Rav Moshe and Rav Yosef, these people are going to weddings. They've been told that they can bench and leave. And there's no Sheva Brachos recited when they bench. Now, and that's whether there's 3 or whether there's 10. It hasn't been said explicitly. But let's see what the Piskei Teshuvah says. The Piskei Teshuvah acknowledges the leniency of Rav Moshe. And like Rav Yosef recommends, ideally waiting to begin the meal until the others at the table have already eaten a kazais of bread or beginning the meal at a different table, like Sai said. So that all opinions would agree that he does not combine with the others. So it's not enough to just rely on his kavana. So maybe Rav Yaakov is right that a person has to have. It's enough to just have kavana, and if he starts the meal at a different time, that's enough. Means he makes a point to start his meal 5 minutes later, or he eats his kazais in some other place. When he's turned his back. Because this is all to get rid of all the suffix. They are lenient, even if someone did not have the active kavana not to be mitzaref. Or he didn't sort of start the meal at a different time. They allow liyachidim lazav atzuda. Imadavar nogea lehem lehezik kaspi. If he has to leave early because of monetary loss, or machmas priyusim, or for their health, like shekoshalama yeshiva arucha, sitting so long at a meal, and it takes away time for their sleep. Kol shekein machmas bitul Torah, or there's too much loss of Torah, or tfilas b'tzibur. Vim efsher ven kpeda klal mitzad balasuda. If the ultimate host of the simcha, he says, is not particular, then 10 people should bench and say, recite Asher Nevarch Elokeinu, and clearly you don't have to do the Shabbat brachos. So here's our answer from the Piskei Teshuvos.
I guess one of the other reasons you don't do it with the Elokeinu with 10 is nobody really wants to advertise to the host that they're leaving early. So you sort of want to do it quietly. And if you make a bracha with 10 people, you're basically, it's almost like, people might consider it in your face. So you tend to do it quietly. I think that might be one of the reasons. It's really,
Right.
the hosts have paid for a whole meal and you're leaving early, so you sort of slink out rather than make a grand announcement by especially having a coast and saying with 10. That might be the practical
Right, he
reality.
said, and the host of the meal is not particular. So in economic, you have to be appropriate. Okay, I'm gonna leave it here tonight. We'll finish the Zima next week, and we'll start the Hilchos Birchos Hamazon formally next week as well.
When I was president of Shari Tzedek many moons ago, I attended so many simchas where you looked around at the end of the simcha, the meals were served so late. There was nobody there. And I wrote in one of the, it wasn't one of my big hits, but I wrote in one of the president's messages that we're wasting so much Jewish money by starting, the simchas, the meal. I remember attending one Chabad event, and we didn't start till after 11. And there was 30 people around, that we should really make an effort to serve earlier so that everybody actually stays or has a chance to at least stay or eat. So, it hasn't changed anything, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so have a good week,
Shkoyach.
everybody.
Thank you, Ernie. You too.
Next week,
Hey. Yeah.
So